All right, welcome everybody to Workshop Studios, and here's today's project. Well, probably more than one day, but we needed a mower over at one of the houses, a ride-on mower, and wanted to get one that was as inexpensive as possible. So I may have gotten ripped off, but at least it runs. So this was 180 for this one, and it's got a few things, like that tire is completely off the rim. I'll have to get that back on, and it's very grubby. But it did run, and it drove up onto the trailer, sort of. And there's a hood for it. So I think we're in good shape here. We'll get it cleaned up and get it all polished up, and it'll be ready for service. So join me as we clean this up and turn this into a sparkling new addition to our yard equipment in the other house. You know that old joke about the fact that I just bought a Rolls, and it's a Rolls Canardly, i.e. can hardly roll. So I pushed it down here to the shop, and well, that was downhill all the way, but that took quite a bit of work. And it is a dirty dog, so I think I might hose it off first before I bring it into the shop to work on it. So let's get started with that. Okay, well that's it. Sort of rinsed off at least a first pass, and it is looking better. Not quite so cruddy. A little spit and polish and it'll be better. But to get it to run correctly, we're gonna have to do something about this. I don't know if you can all see what was done there. I think this is a motorcycle battery, and somebody screwed into the lead terminals with those two screws there. So we're going to have to fix that right now, in fact. Well, we've been working on several parts of the mower, but here's the mower deck, ready for a little inspection and servicing, and maybe some repair. That could use a little better arrangement there. So we want to make sure all the spindles are working well. That's these two. And we want to make sure all of these gears, these pulleys are spinning freely. It seemed to be all right. And down in here, we want all this to be moving well. And then we'll probably touch this up with some paint just to give it a little bit more of a season. Clean off some of these spaces, like down in here where it's a little rusty. Do some wire brushing on it. So we've got a little work to do on this to get it serviced, but it's not in too bad a shape. I know this looks bad. It's all rusty in here, but it's solid. That's what we're looking for. A little bent there, we'll have to give that a little persuasion with a hammer. So let's get working on that. Well, this ought to be a little improvement. So took all that other stuff off, and we're putting these straps around here because the little plastic that goes around here has all been broken off. Take this one off and show you. So this plastic has all been broken away, and so it won't hold on to this anymore. So we'll reinforce with these little straps, as I've done over here. A strap that runs around and is bolted into place. So that will act as the new hinge, if you might, for this to go on. This does see quite a bit of action, can get hit when you're going around. Oops, back up a little. Can get hit as you're going along if you don't have it pulled up. So it needs to be reasonably strong, and I think this will hold on for a while. So that's our fix on that one. If we come over here to the rest of the mower deck, we've gotten the cover off of here. All the parts are moving, and I've greased up all I've put penetrating oil into all of the bolts, because I'll need to take these off. They need a little servicing. I can feel it's kind of stiff, and we don't want that. because those have to go around and around. These are called the spindles here, and here the blade goes on underneath. Belt turns this as fast as possible, and you've got the blades going. So this thing is a lot of action here. So what I want to do is take them apart and re-grease them, see if I can fix those bearings in there. And that will help us get on with this. I've knocked the underneath of this. I've just used a hammer to pound on it to get the rust off, and then I'll put a little rust remover on there and down in here, and then we'll paint the whole thing with a good couple of coats of good Rust-Oleum, and it'll help extend its life. All right, so there we go on that one. Okay, so on the mower proper, I think we noted last time, these two tires are different sizes. That's about 2 inches smaller. That's a 20 inch, this is an 18 inch. And that makes the whole thing sit lopsided and feel kind of weird. So I've ordered a new tire to put on this one. The rims are the same, just a smaller tire. You can see there versus over here. So the rims are the same, it's just the thickness of the tire there. This one continues to lose air. Yep, it's losing air again. But I've got a lot of green stuff in there to try and continue to plug it up, and we'll see if we can't get that to stabilize. So I've been cleaning like crazy. There was just grease everywhere on this thing. I was going to do a little to fix this, the steering wheel, and that's way down in there. I don't know if you can see it moving. It's a little dark right now to see the gears, but we'll see if we want to do that. These other tires are all holding air, so that's good, and we've gotten it pretty cleaned up. We'll continue to investigate any other mechanical issues with it, but now we're going to actually see what's going on as opposed to being covered in grease and whatnot. So the funny part about this, of course, is that one of the points the seller made was that it had new tires and a new battery, which was going to make it very valuable. Well, you can tell the tire may be new to this, but it's certainly not new, and it's the wrong size. And the battery that they put in, I may have shown already, is a motorcycle battery. So, well, that's all right. Still got a good price on it, and we'll get it working, and it'll continue to function. Another interesting part of this is go online and try to find what information you can about a used mower like this, and so it turns out that there's a number of different numbers. There's several numbers on the ID tag on the mower. This is one of them, but this is called a manufacturer's ID. So found the manual for it, all 50 pages. And it's good. It's got some good detail to it. A lot of manuals nowadays don't have that. So happy with that now I have a copy of that. There's a little discrepancy. The previous owner said it was a 2012. Stuff online seems to imply that this is a 1996 model. I'm not sure I care about it too much, but anyhow, mysteries abound. Okay, with some gentle persuasion, we're getting this out. If you like, the shaft out of the what do we call that thing? So this comes off of here, like that, and you can see there's kind of little teeth in there that fit onto the shaft, and then the shaft drops down. There we go. And yes, I did take this out already, so I've cleaned up that shaft, and now I can check those bearings, and they feel good. They're not making a lot of noise, at least the top one isn't. So I'll check the bottom ones. They're sealed bearings, so they're not supposed to need to be greased or oiled or anything, but I did leave a lot of penetrating oil on there, and that may have helped them kind of clear up a little bit. But it's good to check these things out when I've got the deck out. I'm doing sort of a service after a lot of time. So I'll keep going on this one. This is, by the way, I've cleaned that shaft up already. And here's what it looks like coming out. So this one I've already attacked it with a wire wheel. Oops, get them both in there. You can see it's not too bad, but it's rusty enough to hang on to those, the inner race of those bearings. So clean it up, put a little grease on it, and that should come in and out of the spline, I think that's what we call that thing, very well. So far so good. Haven't found anything broken or needing replacement. All right, so here's the underside where the shaft goes down this way, and that's where the blade hooks on, that little star. So the shafts are all cleaned up. I've stuffed these full of this, which is a waterproof green grease. Not that it's necessarily going to help those bearings, but it keeps the water from getting everything all rusty. So that goes back in there just like this. And then the bearings are a little noisy, but I think they'll do better as we get some of that lubricant down inside of them. So we've done the same thing here, stuffed it full of the green grease, and we'll put the shaft down through that one. Base there, doesn't it? But the plastic had been painted over and was in bad shape, so cleaned that up, and then this piece underneath here, which is just a piece of plastic, kind of mylar type stuff. The finish on it had all been worn off, so it didn't reflect very well. So I just used some chrome paint on it, and it looks fine. So put that all back together, and that'll give that a fresher look too. And there it is, all put back together. So that ought to give it a little bit of a brighter look. Well, so here's the brake, and that's why it's not working, partially, because I can't pull this back. Oops, gotta get this in the picture. This is what pulls it back. There's a little kind of a disc brake here, if you might. And so we'll take this apart, make sure everything's free, and I'll show you the workings in there once we get it apart. Well, so here it is taken apart, and what this little lever rotates and pushes on these two pins here. There's one of them, and the other one's over there, right here. And then those push on this little disc back here, which causes the whole mower to stop moving. So it might be, they're both free, so it might be that this just needed adjusting. Oops, this guy here. And you adjust it by tightening down on the spring so that it pushes harder. So let's try that. Okay, that's the brakes working, so you push down here and lift that up, and that locks the brakes in. And that little guy pushes. I don't know if you can see the spring pushing on there. It's all compressed, and that's pushing on the two little pins, and that makes it so that this is now locked. So brakes are now working. Okay, well, the new tire is here. That's it right there, the middle one. The top one is the one that came off of that rim right there. And the bottom one is the one that was on the mower already. And you can see the diameter difference isn't very much, but it's enough to make the mower run lopsided. So we'll get that off of there, and we'll put the right size on that rim, and we'll get this back into working order. The treads are a little different on these two, but it was a great price from Lowe's on that one. So yeah, I called a used mower place to see if they had any used tires this size, and they wanted $50 for a used tire, and that one was $42 from Lowe's as brand new. So clearly we're going to go with the Lowe's one. All right, so we'll get that on the rim. And another one is that getting this tire off of that rim was a bear cat, because it had been on there from probably original, whenever long that was. And the bead on here, this is called the bead area, the bead was just kind of cemented into it, and it took a lot of soapy water and a lot of persuasion to get that off of there. So let's get started on putting that big one back on that rim. All right, here's the new tire on the rim. That took a bit of a struggle, and I used this trick I found online about putting a strap around there to push this out. Now you can see it's still not fully seated there, but as I fill it up with air, it'll pull up against that edge. But when it's empty, it's off the rim, or off the bead, should I say, and trying to get that inner bead to come out up against here enough so you can fill it up with air is a bit of a challenge. So kind of a good trick. Use a ratchet, pull it down tight, and it tends to squeeze the edge out against the rim, and then you can fill it up with air. So all good. So we're moving on to the next phase. All right, so both tires are just on there loosely. And I put a lot of that same green grease on the axle, even though it doesn't spin here. The transmission turns the tire, so this is actually stationary on this axle when I put the key back in it, but I want to make sure that that grease gets good and distributed around there, because that'll make it so that if these tires ever have to come off again, it'll make it much easier than it was before I had to pound it off. So both of those are on. Now we just need to put the clips on, and the back tires are done, well, at least for now. All right, so we've gotten most of the painting done. A little bit of bling on there. I haven't hooked that down yet. A little bling there. Now we're going to replace, or at least try to fix, the steering, which we talked about earlier. It's pretty sloppy here. So there's a bushing down here that looks like that. And that goes at the end of the steering column. It goes all the way down. And we'll take a look at that in just a second as I get that panel off. And then I'll have to crawl underneath and get a few things off down there too. Alright, so here we are looking at the gear down there. This is the shaft that comes down from the steering wheel. And you can see it flopping around down there. And that's what the looseness is. So the thing we're going to replace is, see if I can get down there and point at it. The thing we're going to replace is this right here. I hope you can see that little plastic bit. That's what this is here. That's what this thing is. It goes right down there. All right. Well, so there it is, off, and that was, well, now that I know how it goes together, I guess it's easier, but that was kind of a pain. So the old one doesn't look that much different. I should put it down here than the new one. But I'll show you real quick what see how this is kind of oval and that one's nice and round. If I put this one back up here, on here, if I can do that, you can see how it flops around like this. And the new one goes on here and is nice and snug. So hopefully that'll make a big difference. So there we go. And nothing. Okay, let's see if we can find out what's wrong with it. Well, that's still not doing it. So we're going to chase it down a little bit more here. Okay, so it runs, and what it turns out the problem was, you remember it started up before, and then after I did all the work it stopped running. Well, it turns out that one of the safety switches has to do with the blades engaging or not engaging. That's this lever here. And the lever, when it's back here, has to come all the way back to this. Oops, get out of the shadows here. Has to come all the way back here, and it wasn't coming all the way back. And there's a reason for that. So if it doesn't do that, it doesn't contact a switch down here, and that switch doesn't allow it to start. So the reason is that spring there, which I took off. Oops, that spring right there. I took that off because I wanted this arm that it's hooked onto, this arm here, is the brake to stop the blades when you turn the, you disengage them. And I wanted that to be more active and contact that pulley. So I took that spring off, but that spring was making it so that the leverage, which I won't go into a lot of detail on, but it made it so the leverage didn't get out of the way, which meant that stopped right about there, which meant that it didn't contact the switch, which meant that it didn't turn on. Don't you love it? So we got all that sorted out. As you saw, we ran it around, and the next problem is this belt keeps coming off, and that has to do with a pulley back in there, which I'll show you in just a second, because I've got to take this mower deck off. This part, got to take the mower deck off to be able to fix it. I'll show you what the problem is there. All right, so this is what we were looking at just a second ago. There's that outside one with the spring. This is the one you could barely see. But this is the problem, is this belt keeps slipping off of this pulley. And partially it's because of the way that it angles. When you lower and raise the deck, it angles to that pulley there that drives the whole mower deck. But I think what the issue here is these three are intended to be like this, very close to it, and you can see they have a bigger gap there. I tried bending this one in, but I couldn't. I think what's happened is this pulley got taken off at one point, and these should be shifted around here. I think that's what's going on. So I'm going to try to take this pulley off and see if I can shift these three around, and bend them a bit, and that'll hold the pulley on better. So here's the pulley off. There we go. And you can see these three arms. So what I'd like to do is rotate them around. I think they go more like this, but I don't know, because there's a little tab here that seems to want to orient them that way. And it may not work. So let me do some bending on these, and then that at least will help. Alright, so bent these up. You can see how close they are now. That's the intent, is you want them as close as you can get. I bent that one up. I'm not sure exactly what that one's supposed to be doing, but there you go. And the belt comes around like that, and then this is what hooks onto the mower underneath there on that pulley right there. And so hopefully that will keep that belt from lifting out of here, because that's what was happening before. You know, I might even bend that over a little bit. That'll really help it. Okay, there it is back in place, and this is how it tightens the belt, is when you engage that lever. I think it's push it forward. This moves this back and tightens this belt up and runs the blades, which are here and there. So hopefully that bend in this will keep that belt from walking out of there. Let's go test it out. Well, by Jove, I think we've got it. That went around the yard many a time, very nicely. I adjusted this, so this has got a little bit of a spring to it, so it's not dragging on the ground. But I think we've got it. That little blinged out mower needs to go off to its new home. So, thanks for watching, and we've put another rusty piece of junk back into service. Thanks, and be sure to like and subscribe. Alright, so here we are. This is the after. You saw it on the trailer before, a few minutes ago, and now, many days later, this is after. Cleaned up pretty well. Seems to be running just fine. So time to deliver it to its new home.